all I have. So just those 3 points, if you could address those.
Ms. Asmira, I think you're so right. There are absolutely no winners in a pandemic in the populations that we're talking about, people that make less than $40,000, some of them making as little as $15,000 a year that have been struggling. So I can't see any scenario where they're winners in this. We're just trying to keep people's heads under a roof, trying to get food in their mouths, and having them be safe in the place that they are. But I also agree with you that when we started out this entire program, I remember we had data that was provided by the Alliance on where the employment bases were and how many there were, how many businesses. And I would hope that today we have a couple of items on the list, but these aren't defined well enough. I think what Mr. Jones said is he has a concept around them. And I think that there ought to be at least an explanation or exploration of what the concept is. So right now, I am just looking at words, and I may have an idea of what that means, but I just want us to say, be very careful in the words that we use, because in this situation, that we are seeing people where the evictions are still going on, where we are having kids that are not going to have parents watching them when they're supposed to be at home doing remote learning. There are no winners in all of this. My hope is that we would actually get data around the numbers of people in the hospitality industry, restaurants and hotels that are unemployed, get some information to see how we allocate this before we start talking about ways that we see it or view it without having any information. So everyone in the city's hurting, even those, if it's nothing but mental health stress. And when we talk about the homeless in the tent cities, and I've talked to Ms. Johnson a lot about that, those are people with pets that don't want to go into a shelter. There are people with mental health issues that are very difficult to deal with. And there's also people in there with real substance abuse issues that haven't been resolved. So when we're talking about the universe of homelessness, that's not the same as the people that we could automatically help. But I wouldn't consider anybody in this community a winner just because they got a part of this program. Just think about it. If you think about homelessness and the number of people that are homeless, and homeless because of all kinds of reasons, for us to do 200 is at least helping 200 people. So thank you so much for raising those issues. I think if we could have some data about that, that would be helpful. Mayor Pro Tem, Ms.
Mayor, I want to respond to that comment that you just made. What I'm trying to convey here is that we are being open to all industries, and we're not just choosing one industry. That's the point I've been trying to.
I understand. We should be choosing an industry where people are hurting the most. That's the way I see it. It's like I said, there are no winners. Everybody's out here. Ms. Eisel, Mayor Pro Tem. Ms. Eisel, Mayor Pro Tem.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a good discussion. It really is covering a lot of topics, and I think it also brings to light areas that we can and should help in, like homelessness, that we don't traditionally do. But if there's a plan that comes together, then we should be helping with this homelessness issue. And I'm glad to see that Mr. Graham's task force will be taking up that issue and allocating funding for that. There was a very lively conversation today in the Workforce Development Committee about the hospitality industry. And I think what occurred to me is that we do have funding. We've got to get it out the door. We've got to use it by December. But we also have to be smart about how we use it, because if we look at, and we've said this before when the topic was in the small business task force, that to some extent we don't know how the money is going to help people, because we don't know how long the pandemic is going to last. We don't know what it really is going to take for some small businesses to make it through the pandemic. But what the Small Business Task Force did talk about is industry specification. And while we didn't talk about the hospitality and tourism, industry, hospitality, restaurants, hotels, that is the third largest industry in our community. It employs, and Tracy can help me out, but tens of thousands of people. And I do think that we should have a focus on our industries that are the underpinning of the economy in Charlotte. Because there are no winners or losers. These are all individuals that have jobs, but at the end of the day, we need to make sure that our critical industries are getting some help to get through this. With regards to arts and artists, the arts industry, the arts ecosystem is one that a lot of cities have dedicated their CARES Act money towards, because they recognize that they are also very important in terms of economic development and quality of life in a community. In the case of Charlotte, there are roughly 17,000 people that are employed in the arts ecosystem. And as we know, and any artist can tell you, a lot of those folks are not making a whole lot of money. And so they probably go paycheck to paycheck because they have chosen to have a profession. They're in a profession that really values innovation, creativity over a large paycheck. The need in the arts community is also unique because a lot of the facilities have been closed down completely, and productions cannot be mounted to have 10 people or 50% occupancy. You just can't do it at all. And so it has been sort of an all or nothing event that's happened to that particular sector of the economy. We did have this discussion 2 weeks ago, and I think that we have to start saying, when we've got some opportunities to deploy these funds, we need to start doing it. And we do have an opportunity in the arts sector right now, because as we have been talking about, perhaps the opportunity to use some of the money that the manager has freed up because of the FEMA funding, we could put $1 million towards art institutions and artists. And Mr. Driggs and I have had a number of conversations with all council members about this. In the process of doing that, we had a public sector offer from the Thrive Arts Fund, which Mr. McCall put together and raised funds, private sector funds for the arts community. And I first want to thank Michael Marsicano and Charles Bowman for offering the opportunity to match our money if we were to put $1 million of CARES Act money towards the arts community. We would have the opportunity to have that matched 1-for-1 by the Thrive Arts Fund. And so I know that we're going to still have more conversation on this, but I would hope that the council would consider that we would have a motion tonight, the council would consider passing the support for $1 million for our arts community. And I want to read a statement that was written by our favorite creative guys over at Charlotte is Creative, Matt Owen and Tim Miner, because we had conversations about how this money would be deployed and what really qualifies as artists and creatives. And so I want to read what they had sent me. They said, "We're a city that champions business and innovation. And innovation is fueled by artists and creatives, and it's abundant here in Charlotte. We are asking you, the council, to invest in Charlotte creatives today. Our creatives need that investment now to keep playing their vital role in the growth of our city. When companies consider a move to Charlotte, they may be initially attracted to our resources and our infrastructure, but it's a vibrant character of our city that seals the deal. Our creatives do that. We market our city in large part on the work of Charlotte's creatives and the vision they bring to life here. Think of how the 17 artists who painted the Black Lives Matter mural on Tryon Street thrust Charlotte into a global conversation. Invest, that word is important. Providing funds to creative organizations and individuals isn't charity. It's an investment in the future of the Queen City. Since the pandemic began, Charlotte has acted quickly and rightly to invest in hospitality industry, retail, service business, and others. But many of the arts organizations are nonprofits, which is key here because a lot of the programming even what we have in our small business grant does not address the needs of nonprofits. And so they've been ineligible for a lot of the local and federal programming. Creatives are entrepreneurs who work hard to find innovative success that allows them to sustain themselves and their families and employ others and create opportunities while enhancing the quality of life in Charlotte. Making this investment now will help our arts organizations put freelance creatives back to work, and it will help keep our gig economy creatives here working on that next big idea or project that puts the Queen City on the map and leads the way to recovery. So I read that because there is a lot of momentum in the arts community around getting some kind of help. And I just would remind my colleagues that these are also individuals that could be homeless. I know one artist that was homeless temporarily until friends helped him out. And I'm sure there's many others who are in that position. So they are also probably working in the hospitality industry to make ends meet. They're the folks that have 2 or 3 jobs. They're the folks that are looking for help with daycare, rent relief, utility relief. So I know there's more discussion, but this particular opportunity is one that we have here tonight with a match. And I would like to make a motion that we use $1 million of our CARES Act funding that the manager has identified because of this FEMA situation to put towards this matching program. It will be run by the Foundation for the Carolinas. Although the money will not go to the Arts and Science Council, they will help to deploy those funds to the affiliates of the ASC. But others have the opportunity to access that funding as well, and there will be a percentage of the funding that goes to microgrants directly to artists.
Second the motion.
Second.
Do we go with the motion? Okay. So why don't we go ahead, since we have a motion on the floor, hear people that want to speak for or against the motion. Is there anyone that would like to speak about the motion on the floor?
Yes, Mayor.
This is Graham.
All right, Mr. Graham and Mr. Driggs. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, members of the City Council. I just want to lend my voice to support the motion on the floor to provide $1 million, and that $1 million to be matched by the private community to support local artists in our community. I believe it's a money well spent. Obviously, the arts and science sector of our community represents a number of individuals, organizations, and artists who provide a backdrop to our city. These are a number of these folks in the organization have been in the dark literally since the month of March with no performance and no opportunity to provide resources for their organizations and or for themselves if they're local artists. The opportunity to put $1 million forward and have that be matched simply multiplies our investment to $2 million. And obviously, I believe it's a money well spent. Obviously, as I said earlier, I think the Mayor Pro Tem made a number of good points in terms of why we should support this. I've talked to the Mayor Pro Tem earlier today, as well as a number of members of the arts community, and I told them then, as I am doing now, I'm pledging my support for this very worthwhile endeavor. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, Mr. Driggs.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to speak in support of the motion, and I will point out, as the grouchy conservative on council, I'm not normally a big advocate for large public investment in the arts. I would like
You're
to
not
see
grouchy, you're just conservative. You're not always grouchy. Maybe you are a little bit grouchy. Okay.
Yeah, all right.
I beg to differ, Mayor.
All right, Winston, that's enough out of you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Driggs, I'm sorry.
I think there's a big difference between considering support for the arts in a healthy environment versus this line of defense that we're trying to create here. And under these circumstances, I think that we should back up the investment that we make in the arts with this $1 million, I do believe there is a public interest in the arts. So even though, I wouldn't favor kind of lavish taxpayer funding, I think the community has a stake when it comes to the survival of the arts community. And I'd like to mention that we don't rank, we should not rank all of the priorities that we may identify and then throw all the money at the one at the top of the list. We need to try to allocate the money among the priorities that we identify in such a way that we get the biggest bang for the buck in each of them. And I will mention that, in fact, we do that every year in our budget, even under normal circumstances. So we continue to invest in a lot of things that are in our budget, even while some needs are not being met, because we recognize that those needs are as big as the ocean, and we're not going to meet them all. And we have to use our resources in such a way as to create the benefit, spread the benefit across the greatest number of priorities that we have. So I think that this is a very valid use of $1 million. I think the leverage it makes it more attractive even because of that extra bang that we get for the buck. And again, I think what we're talking here about is the safety net and not some sort of investment in the arts that we might argue should be coming from somewhere else. This matters to us, and we should be willing to pay $1 million. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else that would like to speak to the motion?
Hey, Mayor, I'd like to say something.
I'm sorry.
Ms.
Ms. Johnson? Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. So I really went back and forth on this this proposal. I do want to piggyback off what Ms. Ajmera said when she was talking about industry-specific assistance. I agree with her. I agree that we should have a general fund that serves businesses that have not been served. When we talk about arts, it's a nonprofit. So there might be other nonprofit organizations or industries that haven't been served. So I support general funding and not industry-specific funding. However, with this arts proposal, we do have leverage from the private sector, and I think that that's something that we need to consider, especially since we are going to be providing assistance for the homeless and the individuals in the hotels and individuals who need housing assistance tonight. That priority in my mind is, in all of our minds, is being considered. So the fact that we have the leverage from the private sector, and the arts are an economic driver in our city, as well as this, they have been able to, the Black Lives Matter mural, I think that was healing for our city. It brought national attention, but it was also a healing space for the city. So normally I would, not support or may not support. I can't say that, but in this situation, this is, I think this is important, and I would support. I look forward to. I would support this the Julie's motion tonight.
All right. Is there anyone else?
Hey, Mayor.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mitchell?
I'm sorry. Our screen was frozen for about 7 minutes.
Oh, my gosh.
So I missed all that discussion. I'm sorry. So was I not?
Hey, just vote yes and don't worry about it.
Okay, you know that you have advice and advisors, right? So, Mr. Mitchell, there's a motion on the floor to appropriate from the FEMA $3 million. That's in addition to the $3.5 million, to move that to the Foundation for the Arts and Artists programs with the, I think, because there is a match of $1 million to the money that would allow it to be a $2 million program.
So I just have a process question, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I think when I spoke to Mayor Pro Tem, I told her I was definitely supportive of it. I just want to be clear. We're going to use probably the greatest administrator we have in the city of Charlotte. That's the Foundation of Carolinas to administer it. But will these funds go directly to the artists, or is there a third party involved?
She talk about that. Mayor Pro Tem, you want to explain how it works?
It's the foundation Carolinas will administer it. And I do want to say again how grateful we are to have the generosity of Mr. McCall and the Thrive Arts Fund. And they're covering fees for all that's going to the institutions, because that was just part of the program. So it will be the Arts and Science Council and the Charlotte Creative guys will be at the table to help get the money out the door, but all the money is going directly to the institution and to artists through the Foundation for the Carolinas.
Mayor Pro Tem, see, it must be my screen. I don't want to preach. So, but you were saying who's going to be at the table to make sure the money is going out?
Well, it wouldn't be limited to, but it would be the Foundation for the Carolinas,
Okay.
the Arts and Science Council, and either Matt Olin or Tim Miner from Charlotte's Creative are at the table to make sure the money goes out, who it goes to in terms of those individual grants. But it goes directly from the foundation to either the individual artists or the institutions.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, so any other questions or comments? So we have a motion.
I add that, Mayor, that I'll be supporting it as well. I think it's a good proposition brought together by a lot of people working, and just another great example of public-private partnerships and the private sector coming in and matching. We need more of that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the council member roll call. Mayor Pro Tem?
I'm sorry, Mayor, one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I want to confirm, and I spoke with our attorney, if he's in the room. I spoke with him earlier just to confirm that I do sit on the Blumenthal board along with another council member. Wanted to make sure that I disclosed that and that he confirms there's no conflict of interest in our vote.
Thank you.
That's correct.
I'm on the Arts and Science Council board as well, just for full disclosure.
I played guitar before.
I did
Okay,
that too.
thank you. We still have a lot of stuff to cover tonight, guys. So, all right, Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Ms. Ashmira,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston,
Yes.
Mr. Graham.
Yes.
Is there anyone who opposes this motion? Hearing no one, the motion passes unanimously. Now we'll go back to the general discussion about what to do. We can take support for arts and artists off of this, but a general discussion about how to define and get some of this moving from concept to action. And the person that I'm sorry.
Well, Madam Mayor, I was going to talk about the housing grant for the homelessness. I can do it now, or I can wait until we have our formal housing recovery task force.
Are there any other duplicates besides the housing one that we would talk about later?
No, Mayor, I think the only other one that I believe will come up, because, let me back up. There was a discussion around the hospitality industry earlier today, but I think that will be discussed at the committee report out later. So to Mr. Graham's point, I believe there is something that's coming out of the housing task force that could also be voted on tonight, that would get money out into the community.
Should we do those first? Would you like to do the ones that are actually being asked for action tonight, which I believe would be support for homelessness and housing, and would hospitality be also one? Or is this just the one?
To just be candid, I do believe that there's an expectation, because the task force met last week, that there would be a vote on that $3.4 million. I know it's a timing thing, because you won't potentially approve the $6.9 million until later in the meeting, but I'm sure that it'll be fine.
Why don't we go ahead and this might be a little bit. I don't think utility relief is ready for anything more than just a follow-up, and that might be best now that we have Sean. He could help us make it even better. So why don't we start with homelessness and housing, and Mr. Graham will go over what he's going to approve, and we'll have to, go for that one after we'll discuss it and then bring it up for a vote on when we get to that committee item, but we would all at least understand it. And then if there's a support for the hospitality, we'll discuss that. So we'll just go down the list, but I'm going to let Mr. Graham go ahead, but I also had Ms. Johnson and Mr. Winston as well to speak on the total list. So let's start off with homelessness and a fresh start, starting with Mr. Graham for homelessness and housing. Is that okay with everybody? Anybody object to that? All right, then Mr. Graham, start off with housing and homelessness.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Manager, and members of the City Council. I think the discussion tonight in reference to how we move forward as a community has really been impactful, and what we're bringing forward to you from the Housing Task Force is just as impactful. Let me start by thanking Councilmember Johnson, Winston, and Elliston for their leadership on the Housing Task Force. We had a tremendous 14 weeks of work. Every committee member, task force member was engaged and brought forth a number of legitimate recommendations for the council consideration. Most of those recommendations will be sent to the Great Neighborhoods Committee for further elaboration and clarification. Others will have a serial referral to Mr. Winston's committee relating to government relations to make sure that we meet his deadline. So some of those recommendations will be going that way. The last task force meeting we had was July 30th, and at that meeting, we talked about regulatory affairs and a presentation from our homelessness task force member, Deronda Metz, which is talking about how we can help with the homeless situation as relates to COVID-19 right here on the ground. I think many of the members have seen on news reports as well as with their own eyes some of the issues that we are dealing with relating to homelessness in our communities, ranging from the tent city itself, as well as an empty uptown because many of our workers are working at home. There's a lot more visible presence of the homeless population in our uptown community. And we've been blessed to have Deronda Metz as a member of our task force who did some research and brought us some information in terms of a recommendation for our consideration. The task force committee, on every week we had a very different topic, but even with all those topics, we always came back to at least a minute or two talking about what we're going to do to relieve the homeless situation in our community. Therefore, Mrs. Metz made a recommendation for $3.4 million to help the homelessness issue in our community. The task force voted 11-0 to move that recommendation, approved it, and move it forward to the Phil Council for consideration. And let me read the verbiage to you so I can make sure that I am correct. The recommendation includes $3.4 million that will be used to provide rapid rehousing and supportive service for individuals and families experiencing sheltered and unsheltered homelessness, and individuals and families unstably housed in hotels. And so that's the specific purpose of the funds. Mrs. Weidman, our Director of Housing, has been working with the number of institutions in our community relating to providing homeless service support. This will be done in conjunction with our partner, Mecklenburg County. Again, the county drives this initiative. The city is really in the passenger seat. But as you can tell by the previous presentation by Mrs. Weidman, we have put a number of resources dating back to early this year to providing additional support for the homeless population in our community. This $3.4 million from the ESG fund will help well over 200 families living in tents and in situations that are not what we want as a community. And so I would like to make a motion that we use $3.4 million from our ESG fund for homelessness in our community.
All right, we have a motion on the floor recommended by the task force for the $3.4 million. We have a second to that motion, and it is those funds are restricted for the use of this purpose. And so what we would be looking at from the recommendation, everyone should have a copy of the Housing Task Force funding recommendation. Mr. Graham read the recommendation. It's going to be leveraged, but with the county continuum of care work. So is there any discussion? Any discussion? I hear no discussion, so I'm going to say let's go ahead and move forward on the motion. I'll start with Mr. Graham.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Watlington?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Absolutely.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
If Malcolm says it's good, it must be good, yes.
So is there anyone that objects to this motion? If not, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. So we will go now to the next item on our idea or concept list, consideration list, is support for the hospitality restaurants and hotels that has been previously discussed, and I believe it was discussed in the workforce committee today. So Mr. Mitchell, you want to lead us off?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. And Mayor, we did have a very robust conversation in our committee today about the hospitality industry, restaurant, hotels. We were very sensitive that 1 out of 9 citizens in our community work in this industry. I think it was tough. I think it came down to 3 to 1, and that was before 3 to 1 to say let's not create a separate funding for them, but let's make sure they can apply to a new recommendation that Trace is going to make later on. But with that said, I think a question was asked by Councilmember Ashmere earlier, because I will admit, Mayor, I've been around for a long time, and maybe I got it wrong. I thought we could not use the tourism fund only for capital projects. But I'm here now from our CFO that we can use the tourism fund for this type of activity. Can we get confirmation from our city attorney or someone, because I thought it was a state statute preventing from us for using the tourism funds?
I think that would be good. Ms. Flannery, Kelly?
Sure. So each of the taxes has a different use requirement around it. But let me clarify. The dollars have to be used for tourism expansion and extension. Could that mean, supplementing a program? For sure. But it would still have to fulfill that requirement. So could it just be paying employees? No. It still needs to have a tourism component.
And let me follow up. I thought that the idea that what we were trying to do was help the businesses that are in the hospitality industry to survive. I think that what we would be awarding to would not be programs or capital improvements. We'd be talking about this for the hospitality industry where 1 in 9 people work, and I think they actually have, and this is my understanding, the highest unemployment rate of any sector, business sector is in the restaurant and hospitality industry. Now, I don't think that we're talking about using this money the way Ms. Flannery has explained it. I think this is money to help businesses, not venues. But I'm not sure if I understand. Would it be appropriate, Mr. Mitchell, for Ms. Dotson to explain what the concept was for the committee, or Mr. Jones?
So Councilmember Mitchell, Mayor, let's be clear. What Kelly said was she wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
So someone threw a hypothetical out about whether or not something could be used. And she cautiously said, maybe it could be, but she followed that up very quickly, would say that would not be what she'd recommend. If we go back in time, we know that we have enough in the fund to do the projects that council has already approved. But let's make no mistake that when we start to talk about some of the taxes that drive that fund, those are the taxes that we're being hit with the most. So again, a question was asked about could something occur, and the CFO made it clear that it's not something that she would recommend.
Well, no, City Manager, I'm with you. I just thought maybe, I'm old as dirt, so sometimes you forget stuff. So I just want to make sure I was correct during our committee discussion. Mayor, and we heard you loud and clear, and I remember a couple of months ago, you made a statement and you challenged us if we can support the hospitality industry. I think the conversation we had today, and I'll let Councilmember Ashmere and Councilmember Johnson speak to as well. It was a conversation, are we picking winners and losers by having a designated fund just for the hospitality industry? And we had a very robust conversation. I think we landed at a potential good spot, and Tracy will make that recommendation, I guess, Mayor and City Manager, at our committee breakout portion.
Well, I think we've been doing it as we've come on this list if there's a recommendation for action tonight. So if you're comfortable, are you comfortable with Ms. Dotson doing this now?
Yes. Tracy, I'm comfortable.
I'm comfortable. However, it all goes into a larger pot that we have for the remaining 17.5 million out of the 50 million. So I can talk about specific to where we ended up today, specific to food and beverage and hospitality, or I can go into the whole thing.
What I really don't have I don't have the background and able to make that decision. Whatever you guys decide will be fine with me. I'm sure all of us. So we can.
Yeah.
Mayor, I'd like to comment specifically on this piece, whenever that's appropriate.
Yeah, Trace, can you just talk about the 17 as it relates to this piece, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So if I can have the presentation for the Thrive report out that would have been in the task force, and let me just show you the numbers so you can start to understand, and we can go through it however you'd like. But so I'm going to go really quickly to the next slide. Keep going. There we go. So this is the whole proposed budget for Thrive, and where we started today in the proposal in committee was what you see towards the bottom, the impacted relief fund. We were proposing as $3 million for food and beverage, and then $3 million for hotel and hospitality, and $5 million for food and beverage. Research that we have shows that in the hotel industry, there's probably been a loss of $128 million in the past 4 months, and occupancy's been hit by 70 to 75%. The industry, the research that we've gotten back from the industry is they feel like they really need is some type of fund around hospitality, hotels specifically, again, that is around $10 million. In the food and beverage, we were looking at, again, a $5 million component that was divided up into just what I'll call access to capital, but maybe the opportunity for some innovation grants. Through the discussion today, where we ended up was this impacted relief fund, which follows the government executive order and establishes an $8 million fund that provides grants for targeted industries such as transport, entertainment, indoor exercise facilities. And it's trying to separate out those industries that have been hit the hardest, not been able to reopen at any kind of real capacity. Just to give you a couple other data points, if you combined hotels and food service together, it would be, I think, the 4th largest industry. If you put arts and entertainment into that, it's the 2nd largest industry employer in our community, with healthcare just above it and finance just below it. We have over 81,000 people that are employed through hotel, food and beverage, arts and entertainment. And based on the data that I have, I don't think that includes contract employees of hotels or things like that. So I really don't think that number even starts to capture the entire industry sector. So that was where we landed on the proposal today, is to have a specific fund that basically instead of being industry specific, followed the governor's executive order, recognizing that we haven't moved into the next phase yet, that these are probably the industries that are still in the most need.
So if I recall this, Mr. Mitchell, when we were talking about access to capital, we were talking about how barbershops and beauty shops were really shut down under the governor's order, and we were giving them the opportunity to get PPE and to start up. And what we're looking at, I think what Ms. Dotson said that resonates with me, is that these are businesses that have been out of business from March until September the 11th. And so they've not had any opportunity to participate in anything as a result of where they are right now. That's what I understand. Is that the debate that you had? What is the?
Yes,
what, yeah.
Mayor, you're spot on. That was the debate, because we want to make sure there was some industry who have not had any help since March, and we want to make sure that we can be as diverse as possible, making sure these funds get out to those businesses. That's what we call it, the Impact Relief Fund, so it can touch different industries in our community.
But it would be those under the governor's order that have yet to open?
Yes, and I think we listed, Tracy, go through, I think we listed about 7 other industries.
Well, let me just clarify for the mayor, that wasn't just ones that have had to remain closed. You could still include restaurants in there that have opened but are at half capacity, based under the county's orders, have lost more seating with losing the bar seating or different things like that. And so restaurants were included in that. But we looked at hotels, restaurants, bars, entertainment, and indoor exercise facilities. This also came about, just one thing to note, this also came about when we looked at the access to capital. We had only had about right around 7% of applicants coming from the food and beverage industry.
Okay. Mr. Mitchell?
Yes, ma'am, Mayor.
So I guess what I'm wondering, is there a decision around this? Is there a motion to do the Innovate Business Impacted Relief Fund for those it needs some more detail, I think, than I can say, but under those that are under the hospitality industry, and is that the way we're structuring this?
We structured the Impact Relief Fund, Mayor, to make sure that all small businesses have the opportunity to take advantage of this grant funding that we have in the Thrive budget.
Would it be those businesses related to the hospitality industry, the gymnasiums, or those that have had those impacted by the governor's fund of rules?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Outdoor gyms, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Are you going to make a motion or just
I'd
wait?
like to make a motion to the City Council that we approve $8 million for the Impact Relief Fund.
Second.
All right, Ms. Dotson? I heard someone second. Who seconded Mr. Mitchell's?
Yes, I did, Mayor.
Who did? Ms. Ajmira? Ms. Ajmira, okay. All right. So, Ms. Dotson, did you have a comment?
No.
Okay.
Can I get a point of clarification here?
Of course.
Thank you. Okay. So I just want to make sure, because it was my understanding earlier today, and I think we used these words like broad and general, that we were trying to cast a wide enough net to cover businesses and remove barriers. But I'm hearing today that businesses that are identified in the governor's order. So can I just get clarification of what businesses that would be eligible for this? Because it was my intent that we captured or supported businesses who might not businesses who might not have received other funding, such as the nonprofits we spoke about earlier today, or businesses, a creative business that we may not be aware that exists. So I just want to make sure what this $8 million or who this $8 million will serve.
Okay, let me get through it again. So we have, and I want to step back because this also gets into the Access Capital discussion that we had earlier today too, where our recommendation for the Access to Capital, which we have only prioritized today, for companies that have not received PPP. Our recommendation is to, moving forward in this final round of Access to Capital, which is the 30 million, that we open it up to organizations that have served PPP, while also looking for other organizations that maybe still have not, that haven't had a chance to apply yet. So that is one piece of it, and that is for businesses for 25 and under, or excuse me, 6 to 25 or 1 to 5. Then what we talked about today, and I think it got lost in a lot of the discussion, what Laura was suggesting when we were throwing out different ideas was that if you didn't want to do something, and as I think it was coined, pick winners or losers, that what you could look at is what the governor's mandate is. That's a series of industry sectors and businesses, primarily small businesses, that have been, that are still being negatively impacted by not being able to open, or rule changes or different things like that. And so we've essentially broadened what we proposed to begin with into something that fall under the governor's orders, which were hotels, bars and restaurants, entertainment, indoor exercise facility.
Ms. Johnson, did you get your response?
She just listed about 5 types of businesses. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Just those 5 types of businesses.
Yeah, those 5 industry sectors, and I can pull up the governor's. You give me 1 second. I did not copy it. Pull up the governor's sectors. Hold on 1 second. See if I can read it. The governor's mandate specifically is what we were trying to follow. And let's see, it says the executive order, North Carolina Executive Order 120, entertainment facilities, example, live performance venues, movie theaters, skating rinks, B, indoor exercise facilities, gyms, yoga studios, indoor trampoline, rock climbing facilities, C, personal care and grooming business, beauty salons, barbershops, massage therapists, training salons, nail salons, D, restaurants. Those are the ones that are specifically called out under his order.
So that's more than 5, more general, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure that we were serving one, and that there weren't people that were going to be left out, or as much as possible.
Okay.
I had my hand up.
Mayor?
I have a list here. I have, after Ms. Johnson, I have Mr. Winston and Mr. Eggleston, and then Ms. Ajmira.
Mayor, I've had my hand up for a while too.
I'm sorry. We're working on it.
All right.
I thought that. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Okay. This is the list I have so far. I have Ms. Johnson, Mr. Winston, Mr. Eggleston, Ms. Ajmira, and Ms. Eisel. I now have my sticky note. So. All right. Ms. Johnson, are you done? Have you gotten your responses?
Finished. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Winston.
Yes, ma'am. Tracy, I have two questions, I think. I hear you. We just went through the types of industries that might be able to access this $8 million. But how will they access this $8 million? What type of guide rules or boundaries are being put? Is there certain size company? Is there a certain thing that they have to do with this?
Well, Councilmember Winston, I'll be honest with you, we're kind of building this as we're going because this is not exactly what we walked in with this morning at the committee meeting. And so one of the next steps that we'll have to take is really dive into this in terms of size. One thing that we looked at in the 2 hours between the committee meeting and this meeting is, do you do based on that industry sector that we talked about or company size? Do you do different grant sizes? We've got to determine if we continue with the partner and the foundation to put this capital out, what's the most efficient way to do it? We've heard from you all many, many times is getting the funds out the door, the relief out the door is important. And so, we've looked at grant funds in this, but again, because of where we ended up at 2 o'clock today, we haven't really had the time to put the full scale together.
Thank you. That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. I need a confirmation for that. I also have one more question, but it relates to something I heard earlier tonight's agenda. Mr. Jayoba, when he was talking about some of the things, the way we've had to pivot in terms of planning and supporting growth and development, is that, with these streeteries and adaptive reuse of our public spaces for economic development in eating, but also maybe other types of businesses, there was a need for a funding source for that. Is this something that this impact fund, some of this $8 million could be used for rather swiftly, being that it seems like we do have a sort of framework for how to do that, but we're looking for money to make that happen?
If it's someone with COVID related, this all has to be COVID related.
Yes, but streeteries.
So I'm saying if you show that relationship, yes, the answer is yes.
And Councilmember Braxton, just to answer your question, when we were initially thinking about food and beverage fund, we had almost divided it out into straight access to capital, if you will, or then what I'm going to call the innovative business grants specific to food and beverage. So let me give you a couple examples of that. Streeteries would be one. The other idea would be, would a couple of restaurants in a neighborhood want to come together to start their own delivery service? That we wanted to give food and beverage an opportunity to get innovative. But when it all kind of got lumped together, I don't know that that still works the same way. There is still, through the Innovative Business Grant Program, that if you're looking as the line above the Impact Relief Fund, there still could be an opportunity to talk about streeteries in that, depending on how it's approached.
So I guess my last, no, I said two, but I'm gonna add a third. I asked Taiwo the same question. What does City Council have to do here to make that happen, to get this money from this bucket into this action that seems to be quite actionable pretty soon?
Councilmember Winston, so Tracy, my understanding is the Innovative Business Grant Program was designed to some extent to deal with the streeteries and some of the things that would show innovation around restaurants and seating and things of that nature. Are you saying that when you left the committee today, you're not sure if it still covers that?
No, let me clarify. We had the Innovative Business Grant Program, the $1.5 million, that was kind of citywide, all businesses. What we had been talking about, and we didn't really get to a lot of discussion in the committee about it today because we kind of quickly, there seemed to be a pushback on having a restaurant and a hotel fund. We didn't really get into it. What we had considered was dividing up part of the $5 million that was food and beverage and doing a separate restaurant innovation business grant program.
Well, and I just want to follow up on why I'm harping on this for my colleagues, is that not only is this a way that we can get people back to work, but we have to think about it from our perspective as well. We are in the beginning stages of a pandemic. We have to recognize where we're at. We're probably going to be here 12 months from now having the conversation of still dealing with a pandemic. So as we're finding ways to invest these tax dollars, we should find ways that are finding solutions that are also going to present more solutions, right? So if we are able to do socially distanced work on a consistent
I probably would eat
basis, that will kind of sustain the business model throughout, then we'll also continue to generate tax revenue, and we'll be in a better situation to provide more solutions. So the streets are a viable place to do that, and businesses can only do that if they get our help. So this is why I'm on this, because it just seems like it makes so much sense right now, and people are clamoring for us to take these steps to make this happen. We seem to be right there on the precipice. I just want to know what we can do to push us past and push us over through that.
That sounds like a great idea, to allow that innovation for people to be able to survive and thrive. Okay, so Mr. Eggleston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't belabor the point too much, but I hope we can retire, at least in our COVID discussions, the idea that there are winners. The mayor kind of said that earlier, but that we're picking winners or losers. Because if we don't want, government has already, in the course of this COVID pandemic, been in the business of picking winners and losers through the fact that the restrictions on the businesses, which, by the way, I am supportive of, and I understand that there are differences between businesses that lead us to allow some to open safely while others can't. And I'm supportive of those health decisions that have been made. Those decisions have picked winners and losers, namely losers. And so when we look at how we can deploy these funds, we are not picking winners and losers to say that funds need to go to the places where the policies that have been created to protect the public health have made those industries the losers on the front end of this COVID pandemic. When we've got dollars to deploy, that's where they need to go. If people can't be open, if people can't work, dollars are needed there more than places that they can. And so while no one is a winner right now in this pandemic, there are people who are losing more than others, and that's where we should put the dollars. So I want to get away from the idea that somehow this is, and I know this is not what any of my colleagues mean, but it paints a picture as if this is going to be some sort of windfall that some business is going to profit off of. Everyone's losing their life savings and their life's work right now. No one's winning. So I do hope that we can put this towards the people who need it the most and have no other means to keep their business on life support but for our assistance.
Okay. Ms. Ajmira?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this Impacted Relief Fund, it provides opportunities to all businesses that's been impacted by governor's order. So we're not excluding hospitality industry. One of the recommendations that our experts on our small business task force from hospitality industry said that there are many restaurants and hotels that were not able to apply for access to capital program because they employ more than 25 people. Well, with this Impacted Relief Fund, we are taking that filter away, so that way everyone who has been impacted, minus the publicly traded companies, can apply for this fund. So it is broad enough to include most of the industries that are impacted. So I don't want anyone to think that we are excluding hospitality and tourism. The program has been modified so that they can also apply, that they weren't able to apply with our Access to Capital program.
Ms. Ajmira, do you know how many publicly traded companies there are in Charlotte? Does anyone know? I just wondered. Ms. Dotson, do you know?
I do not, but I'll get you the answer.
Okay. That makes a difference because you can go with it, and if it's so many, does it dilute the impact that you can have for them? Or if they're not enough, are we giving too much money in one place without knowing how many others would have it? So that would be a good number to know. All right, Ms. Isolt?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I think I understand a little bit better. I listened in on the meeting today and honestly was kind of concerned about it. And I think I understand a little bit better about what the committee was saying with regards to lifting the filters, but I do have concerns about that. You know, again, this isn't, it feels like a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. And there are no winners in this city right now with COVID. Everybody is impacted, but we've got to be very intentional about how we deploy these funds. And so I actually would have been, I was on the Small Business Task Force. I wish this conversation would have still taken place there because, you know, we did have all those industry experts that could have weighed in on this. But I do think that we have industry sectors, again, that are highly impacted and represent a very large segment of our community, of our economy, that need more assistance. And I would say that the hospitality industry is one of them. So while I would certainly support an effort around the hospitality and restaurant industry and lift the cap of 25 employees for them, I think we, to the mayor's point, we're diluting our impact if we just now say that anybody can apply that's on that governor's list in any of those businesses, and now we no longer have that limit of 25 employees and a certain level of revenue. 70% of the businesses in our economy and nationwide are small businesses with less than 25 employees. So when we targeted that population of businesses through the Small Business Task Force, we knew that that was going to give us the biggest bang for our buck. So I can't honestly get my head around the impacted relief fund of opening it up to everybody and not have some, and just take all those restrictions off that we really worked for months to put in place on the Access to Capital program. There's still a tremendous amount of need out there for businesses under 25 employees. Mr. Newton really has done a lot of work with our immigrant community that did not get access through the program for a lot of different reasons, and I applaud the foundation and Tracy and Holly and their team for really trying to still make sure that they do have access to capital. But I think we're really limiting our impact if we now just say everybody can participate in this fund except for publicly owned companies, which are probably, I don't know, I don't think that they measure up to the number of privately owned companies we have in this community. So I'm not sure at this point that I could support that kind of a change unless it was really around specific industries that do represent such a large portion of our economy.
All right, Mr. Bakari.
Thank you. So, I mean, I think the bottom line here is everyone is seeing that there is basically a dollar amount and absolutely no idea what to do with it or another level of detail. And let me just dispel one quick rumor. That is not staff's fault at all. Full stop. Staff has been getting whipped around for 3 months plus now. They've spent 3+ months working on really data-based strategies and plans to address the crisis that our small businesses, that our workforce, that others are facing right now in our community. And they do all this analysis and they get into these meetings, and a couple of our colleagues literally continually, habitually rip out the rug from under them and just make them go a different route. And this is completely evident. In the last 24 hours, they've been ripped, the rug has been ripped out of them from under them twice. And now you're simply seeing them sitting here and saying, yeah, this is the new thing. And I had 2 hours to figure it out. So if you're looking for the unvarnished truth, that's literally what's happening right now. And you have the two saddest parts of where we are in all of this right now is, one, we've got an entire group of some of our most talented staff that I don't even know if they're still pulling their hair out at this point or if they're just dusting their resumes off and trying to jump out of the ship as fast as they possibly can. And two, the real travesty is we've been given $154 million. And while the number wasn't shown to us in those earlier presentations, my gut reaction is if 10% of that money here in the middle of the third quarter that it has to be spent in is out the door, I'd be surprised. So those are the two facts that we have to understand. I'll just have one question because I literally don't even know, I don't know how to vote on this. Because one side of me says, there isn't enough meat here to even remotely figure it out. The other side of me says, I don't want our poor, abused staff to have to go through another round of this behind the scenes jockeying and committee meeting. So I'll ask you, Tracy, would you prefer us all vote to pass this and you guys just literally figure the details out later?
Don't ask her that.
Well, I mean, Marcus, somebody, because I want to know how to vote. The answer is we shouldn't vote to move forward, but at some point they can't keep doing this, and we're running out of time to help the people that need it. So somebody needs to answer that.
We're not meeting for another month.
Council Member Bakari, there's a motion on the floor which I think has a second.
Did we get a second to Mr. Mitchell's motion? I just want to make, yes, we have a second to Mr. Mitchell's motion.
And just for me, just some clarification. So we do have the $30 million worth of grants, which I think $8 million has gone out the door. But there are a number of businesses that maybe we're discussing tonight that have applied, and that process will work itself out. And then there is a motion on the floor that deals with something that has a bit more specificity, and it seems like some council members would like it smaller, some would like it broader. And I think that's what's important is to just get understanding is not the right word, but there are opportunities for entities to go into some of the grants that are already out there. Again, a part of that $30 million, and it seems like this would capture restaurants and hotels, but maybe not to the level that the team started off with, which was a bigger emphasis on restaurants. But I believe that's what the committees are for, to have these types of debates. And I believe that if something could not be done or is inconsistent with the rules, somebody, whether it's me or Kelly or Tracy, would step up and address it.
So I'm going to ask Mr. Jones if what he just said is that this list of projects here, the Impacted Relief Fund, what I heard Ms. Dotson say is that those businesses under the governor's order, including restaurants, would be those places where they've been closed since March, and they haven't been allowed to open yet. And that this is...
Excuse me, I don't understand that, because when you say beauty salons, a lot of beauty salons are open. I'm kind of confused.
I didn't say beauty salons. I'm sorry. I didn't say beauty salons.
I thought Tracy did.
I thought it was the gyms, but I didn't think that she said beauty salons. But
so let me clarify. When in our list we did not have beauty salons. When I read the governor's order to clarify everything for Ms. Johnson, beauty salons and barbershops were in there. So it is included in the governor's order. I don't have the breakdown in the 30 million of the existing access to capital in terms of what kind of response and applicants we've gotten that fall into beauty salons or barbershops. We do hear that they're still impacted. I know that on the 30 million, the restaurants make up 7% of our applicants.
So I think I'm sorry, I did not mean to say beauty shops, but I guess I was using the criteria unable to open and recover to this point in the time since we started this, because we're not closing off anyone to make an application for the original 15 and now 30, right? I mean, we still have that. Out of the 30 million that we have in the first fund for grants, we've spent 8 million. Is that correct? So we have a long runway left to do that. I was just thinking that we were focusing on the hospitality industry more than anything. But I think that I saw a chart earlier today that said hospitality industry. Maybe I missed it, but I thought I saw a chart somewhere. Oh, here it was. Okay. Yeah, there was a food and beverage relief fund recommendation for $5 million.
Mayor, that was before we went into the committee.
Okay, what was the recommendation in the committee for food and beverage? I'm sorry, I just wanted, what was the recommendation then?
So what came out here was that impacted relief fund. So the $5 million for food and beverage and the $3 million for hospitality kind of all got rolled into one $8 million fund.
So that would be primarily for food, beverage, and hotels in the $8 million.
Well, there was debate amongst council members as to not targeting specific industries. And so that's when we tried to introduce the idea that it could be geared towards hospitality, because that was part of what was in the governor's order, but also let in gyms and, from what I just read, hair salons and barbershops.
Well, I think it's nothing like a council meeting to figure out what's supported and what's not. That's why we can do this. I think Mr. Mitchell's motion was $8 million for an impacted relief fund, and I think I'm going to just say this. Let's try, Mr. Mitchell, if you would agree, why don't we do one with has food, beverage, hotels, and gyms in it? Would that be okay to start out there? That is the all-inclusive for the longer-term people that have not had an opportunity to get to other places. Mr. Mitchell? What would you like your motion to be so that we can get clarity?
Yeah. Mayor, I think we all get the same intent. We're trying to make sure we can get this money out to the community. And so I want to be the dead horse. I just don't want us, though, to override the committee, and I don't want to set that model tonight. I think we can have a check-in process on September 14th. So if somehow we look at the numbers, if it's not being dispersed, that we can revisit it. So I like to keep the motion on the floor, the Impact Relief Fund, with the caveat we can look and see how things are transpiring at our next council meeting on September 8th, if that makes everybody comfortable.
So the impact, I just want to make sure, Impact Relief Fund would be open to any business?
Yes.
And including publicly traded businesses or?
No, not including publicly traded business, Mayor, no.
Well,
so, can I clarify?
So the West, let me just, if I'm at the Westin and they're not publicly traded, and the Marriott is, we would differentiate. I wonder how you differentiate that. I just think that gets into, okay, I don't know how you deal with that. They're both hotels in Charlotte, both going through the pandemic. How do you deal with that?
So can I add a little bit of color and data around the publicly traded?
Yes.
Really quick. So we have about 25,000 hotel rooms in Charlotte. About 92% of those are affiliated with a brand or parent company, like a Marriott or something like that. So most of those are going to be publicly traded type companies. We have 2,526 publicly traded companies in Charlotte. However, only 156 of those aren't franchises. And so, with hotels, I need to do just a little bit more research in terms of ownership, whether it's what I'll call the mothership, and a Marriott owns the Marriott, or somebody owns a hotel here that carries a Marriott flag, but they're a local owner of a hotel. We may have to do more research in dividing that out to better define that. But I think that you have a mixture as it relates to hotels that are owned per the brand. My guess, and I'm going out on a total limb here, my guess is that the larger hotels are going to be owned by those brands. A lot of the other hotels, and majority of our hotels, are going to have more individual or company ownership.
Okay. I think that this is open to any business. I don't know that we know enough about what's publicly owned and what's not, especially when it comes to hotels and restaurants where they're franchises and you can be an owner of a franchise, so you could just be a franchise operator. Is that kind of it?
You can be a franchise operator. You take a lot of restaurants, or, I mean, again, I'll go back to the hotels. When I was on the development side, I worked with a lot of local ownership that developed and owned hotels, but you pull in a flag onto that. So the flag is the brand of the hotel, but the ownership can be completely different.
Okay.
And local.
Okay, so I think we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Mitchell to approve an $8 million impacted relief fund that's open to, non-publicly traded companies or only publicly traded companies? Which one was it, Mr.? Non-publicly traded businesses.
Mayor,
Okay.
I have a question about the motion before we vote.
Yes, sir. Mr. Eggleston?
There's been so much said. I apologize if I'm not on the right iteration. This is open to any business, yes or no?
With the exception of the non-publicly traded piece.
With the exception of non-publicly traded.
No, publicly traded.
Publicly traded.
Right. So,
Okay, publicly traded, okay.
right.
Publicly traded
So
companies
I
are
just-
excluded from the program.
Publicly traded, yes.
Excluded.
So, and again, given that this is our last council meeting for a month, I'm not sure what the alternative is, but if it's open to any business, are we even requiring that they demonstrate that they've been impacted? I mean, there are a small handful of businesses who have not had nearly the negative impact that many have, and sectors that have been impacted at very different degrees from others. So why are we even calling it an impacted relief fund if we're not limiting it to the people who have been most impacted? And again, I don't want to vote against something because I know every business in this community right now needs assistance, but some very demonstrably need it more than others, and we can quantify that. So I just don't know how, like, we're broadening it to the point where it's not going to be effective for the people who need it. So I'm probably not going to vote against it, but we might need a new name because this is just anyone who wants it relief fund.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem?
I just offer something. I guess I'm still a little bit, I'm really struggling because we put together a task force of businesses in the community who made recommendations. And now that just kind of went out the window. None of them even had any say in the matter. The $8 million, I recognize, that we've learned some things. There's an industry that needs more help than others. Why can't we just keep that in the grant money, put it in the grant money, but say we will make an exception for hotels and restaurants to apply for it if they have over 25 employees. They have to be private. So if it's a licensee of a hotel or something, but they got PPP, they shouldn't get this money. And the team that makes that decision, Holly's team can figure that out, but we did not. The task force intended this to be for businesses with employees of 25 and below. And that and just changing that all in one day with a couple of council members when the task force didn't have a say in the matter. I really am struggling with that decision so quickly. Why not just say the 8 million's an extension of the grant,
So,
except for the hotels and restaurants that can go over 25 employees?
Is that a substitute motion?
I'd like to make a substitute motion that says we keep our small business grant program the way it is, but restaurants and hotels, in whatever the qualification was in the tourism industry, can go over 25 employees. As long as they weren't, they're not owned by a big company that got people. I don't know. I don't like the way we're doing.
I think, this goes back, it's almost like a full circle. We went from, yes, we know more people are impacted. I think Ms. Eggleston's point to we'll do it for everybody, and I don't know where we've gone. So, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Tracy, I'm just going to see where we are based on the committee meeting today. I actually thought that this was not as broad as what is being discussed now. So can you bring us back to where we left off in that committee? And if Mr. Mitchell, if you could confirm that, I think that would be helpful.
But so Tracy, before you, let me just make a statement so at least we all could be on the same page. We did invite the Small Business Task Force committee members to our committee meeting today. We had 3 representatives on the phone: Vinay Patel, Diablo Wilson, and Chad Turner. We kept the meetings open to our Small Business Task Force to say, if there's an important issue for you, please continue to join us. So I want to make sure that we did have representative of our Small Business Task Force there. They engaged with us on this topic, and I just want Peter to be clear. We took that expertise that we had in the very beginning, and they still with us now. Tracy.
Thank you, Councilmember Mitchell and Mr. Jones. So I think there's a couple of questions in this. Where we started when we came into committee today, based on the data that we had, conversations we'd had in the industry, was to propose in this new budget a fund for restaurant, food and beverage, and then also one for hotels, recognizing that the one that we had for hotels wasn't still going to be exactly what hotels needed, but that we had one for each that was specifically catered to each one. And so I think that's a question number one: is that an industry sector that we want to support or not support? Through the committee discussion, it got broadened to other business types. And so our staff's intent has always been to try to have something that focuses around food and beverage, hospitality. If you want to add gyms in there, add gyms in there. It was more of the businesses that have been impacted and still remain impacted either by rule changing or closure, whatever you have, that we really were catering something to help them. So,
and this is the recommendation Mr. Bakari said the staff came and put forward, but the committee broadened.
The committee broadened, yes, correct.
It's just that I think if we have something, and you say that we can come back in September, we can always broaden, but it's very difficult to put things back into a bottle when we can probably start with where the staff was and say $5 million for food and beverage. I don't know what it was for hotels, but just doing that. And then if we need to do more, we can broaden it in September.
So, motion.
Yes, Mr. Bakari?
The original staff proposal of a relief fund catered towards the hospitality, food, beverage, and hotel industry with the 3 and 5 million relevantly associated, and that will be then enable them while we are on break to continue forward and then fill in the blanks of the additional details necessary to move forward.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a food and beverage fund of $5 million and the hotel for $3 million, and that the staff would work through that. And then I would just say that if if we want to do more, we can come back and do more in September.
Mayor,
Yes, sir?
good point. And so when staff brought that to us, I think our community members can remember Mr. Vinay Patel spoke to that proposal. And so that's why I think the discussion led, how can we, what could be fair? Because he mentioned the amount of money. He did not, I don't want to put words in his mouth, Trace, but I think he used the word wasn't sufficient enough. If there's so much confusion around the $8 million, I think then it'd be best if we want to table this, approve the rest of the Thrive budget, and then come back. I just want to make sure we get it right, and so we're trying to do our true intention is to help small business out there in our community.
Well, but what came out of committee would be all businesses, and it's not small businesses. I'm confused.
We do have a seconded motion.
All right,
on
we
the floor, though.
have a substitute motion on the floor. Any further discussion of the substitute motion, which is a $5 million food and beverage relief fund and a hotel fund of $3 million? Is there any further discussion? Okay. I'm sorry, Ms. Johnson?
Yeah. I just wanted to give some background of what our intent was today. Our intent was to be inclusive and not industry specific. I mean, Ms. Mira used the word winners, losers. Maybe that's not the right semantics, but our intention was not to be exclusive to businesses who are suffering. We know that there's a high percentage of restaurants that are suffering and hotels, but that doesn't mean another type of business is not suffering as well. So that was our intent, was to open this up. That doesn't preclude or exclude hotels and restaurants from applying, but it just removed barriers for businesses who have not been funded or need assistance that have been impacted as well from COVID. So I know at the beginning of our meeting, we talked about restoration and equity and, apologizing to the Black community. And here's one of these policies that gives us an opportunity to be as open and remove barriers for small businesses or businesses, over 25 or whatever it is, but to be as inclusive as possible. And once again, there's a barrier that will be there for them. So that was our intent. No, we didn't have the details worked out. We rely on the staff because the meeting was just over at 2:00, but it was the committee's intention to be inclusive and to help out as many as possible.
I think that's a great principle, and we are doing that through the $30 million fund. If we want to come back and change that to open up the for more employees, we can certainly do that. I think we've been talking about this now for a good bit, and I think we have a substitute motion on the floor to do this. Again, let's see how it shakes out with the vote. That's why we're here. And then we can come back in September and redo or decide how we can do. If the $30 million that we did in the first grant program comes back and we've only gotten to $10 million by September, we need to open that up for another way, because that's something everybody can go to. It's just limited by size. This one is limited by function, which is pretty much, both of them are limited in some respects. So we have a substitute motion on the floor. All right, I'm going to start calling. I'm sorry, I cannot hear.
But let me just say also that what hasn't been addressed today, as we learned in the committee meeting, there was a 67% or 65% error rate for the businesses that had applied. So there's some mitigation that can be done for even the businesses that have applied to be able to get funding. So it's not like this is not a successful program or that, that folks aren't applying, but the majority of the businesses that have applied have received some type of error in the process.
My understanding is those numbers have improved. That was before the foundation took over the process, and that has changed. But that's just what I've been told by the staff. So we have a motion on the floor. So the motion is to have the food and beverage relief fund at 5 million, hotels for 3 million, and to come back, have that's ready, operated, and come back and see if there needs to be any additional changes to it. I'm going to start with Mr. Bakari.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Newton. Mr. Newton?
No.
Okay. Miss Johnson?
No.
Miss Watlington?
Can you tell me what the final motion was?
The motion?
That's the original proposal today.
Which is the staff proposal for food and beverage relief fund of 5 million and hotel fund for 3 million.
Okay.
Yes, okay. Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
No.
No?
No.
Ms. Ajmira? Ms. Ajmira?
No.
Madam Mayor, I'm confused.
Mayor, wait, let me finish this up, please. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
The motion passes 6 to
Wait, Madam
6.
Mayor, that's why I wanted to stop you. I'm sorry. I think I'm confused. I thought you were saying that Cia Mitchell's original motion was on the floor. I apologize.
I'm not sure.
She thought that she was voting for Mr. Mitchell's motion, but she's not. She's voting for Mr. Bakari's substitute motion, which is what's on the floor
And
now.
what did you? I'm sorry. I don't really write down by names who voted yes or no. The clerk.
I recorded her as a yes.
Okay. All right. Someone. Oh God.
I'm a yes. It passes.
Mr. Driggs. Mr. Driggs will make it 6. And I don't know how to do this. I think you're supposed to allow for a motion for her to redo her motion. But how do I do this so that I meet the rules?
Well, if Ms. Watlington would just say what was her intent on that motion.
What was your intent, Ms. Watlington?
No, I was wanting to support the
Okay,
original.
so Mr. Driggs, and that makes it passes 6 to 5. Okay? All right. You got your work cut out for you, Mr. Jones. Let's see where we can go. All right. Now, if we can go back to the concepts that were on the table, I'm going to suggest that we've done the major portion of that work. And unless someone, where is the concept list? Miss Jackson? I'm going to ask if there's anything else on this list that we want to discuss tonight or give the manager some direction.
I originally had something to say. I think we're getting back to before we broke into.
And we were going down the list, and we've now gotten to the action items. I think the others are all, or maybe this last one is a definition item too, but. Okay, we're trying to get that list up. I can't see it here.
So, Mayor, the remaining items were youth athletic activities, employee assistance with daycare, which I'd like to pull off. That's something that I should handle, and additional support for public Wi-Fi, as well as additional support for small business.
Okay, so go back. So Mr. Jones is going to take care of the support for employees. And childcare?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm going to try my best.
Try your best, right? This is such uncharted territory. I don't know what we do with all of this, so, okay.
We were very worried that things were going to escalate if we just sat in the briefing room and fought.
Okay. The next one was youth athletics. All right. Mr. Jones has said the next one is youth athletics. Is there a discussion around that? Okay, here we are.
Mayor,
Yes?
I thought in the safety committee meeting that we had that there was some discussion about the youth athletics, and I think I remember, correct me, Mr. Chairman, I thought we passed something to add additional funding for the youth athletics. So I thought we were okay. Mr. Chairman, but I could be wrong.
We did pass. I don't know what other possibilities have been discussed. Mr. Jones might know what overlap there is or difference there is in what's been discussed, but we just added to one specific program. I'm not sure about others that might be on the table.
Yes, I'd like to give it a shot. The concept is schools being virtual and opportunities for athletics being diminished, and our youth, especially in our corridors, is there something that we could do with CARES funds to support that void that's going to be created, especially as our relationship with the YMCA, and I don't want to call that relationship ending, but the $2 million that were associated with that program really ran mostly through the summer. So what void is out there that if we think about it more intentionally, maybe even with partnerships with the county and with the school system, that there could be opportunities for young folks in the fall. I think I summarized that.
Okay.
I have some content.
Yes, sir. Mr. Winston?
As I mentioned earlier in our intergovernmental affairs report out, we are trying to figure out how, look, we're dealing with this pandemic, and getting through this school year is probably the most important issue our community is about to face moving forward. It affects every segment of our population. It affects economic development. It affects the ability for people to go to work and everywhere in between. As we're trying to figure out what the city's help and role might be in this, we're not going to really understand what that looks like and starts to look like until after September 1st, as CMS is really focused on getting through the beginning of school. Then they can start to get to their out-of-box thinking where they can bring partners like us in the county into it. As we're trying to be proactive, I do think we need to think about what is in our wheelhouse. How can we prepare ourselves to serve alongside CMS and our other partners? As Mr. Jones said, we know that there is going to be no athletics. We know that there is going to be no movement, no phys ed, and we know that people that aren't moving, as we're looking at a public health crisis and looking at acute measures and conditions of health, and how do we improve those situations in the pandemic, while also understanding where our skill sets and our jurisdiction applies, youth sports, our partnerships with other service providers in the community, athletics, programs to get young people up and moving are some of those places that we play well in, and some of the things that we've done in the past. So I think it makes a lot of sense for us to think about how do we continue to think outside the box and respond to the needs of our community, and not just speak about it from a general sense, but how can we specifically prescribe solutions and help? And I think at youth sports, youth athletics, and youth athletic programming and activity programming is right there. You need to look no further than PAL, for an example, or as Mr. Jones said, our strong and close partnership with the YMCA in the summer and throughout the school year.
Some details around that, what it might look like. I think you're right, we'll know better what's going on, I think in combination with the school starting and also to see what the federal government is going to do around, and I think a number of people around child care especially, so if we can look at that. So the next one is the manager's going to handle the employee assistance with daycare, especially for our folks that have to be here. And then the next one is additional support for public Wi-Fi.
Yes. So, Mayor, I'm very pleased that this was brought to our attention. I will say that we have a lot on our plate right now dealing with public Wi-Fi to pull this off. But just having council members wanting us to go as far as we possibly can is good enough of a nod for us that if there are more opportunities for us to go with public Wi-Fi in those corridors, we will.
My understanding is that the two IT leaders between CMS and the city have met, and they're going to build around the same principles of work. But I think a lot of this is being led by the schools, but we're supportive in ways that they can work together. So I think we have a goal to change the digital divide, and we've got a lot of ask out there, and I think this should always be on the table. Additional support for small business. Can we do that in September when we come back with this? I think it's really important to get a run rate for the $30 million, the run rate for this $8 million, and then pull all together instead of, we're kind of looking at this as what's available for money to do, and then look and see what we've done and then decide where we go. I think that's the discussion we should have in September. All right, any other comments on the list?
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Johnson?
As far as utility support, if we wrote off some of the balance for the water, outstanding water balances, would that be considered a loss in revenue, Marcus?
Yes, and so I think David is still here. We do have an understanding of what we have in terms of bills that are overdue and how that may be different from what would be typical. David, are you able to speak to that? Or Angela? Or Kelly?
Or maybe a follow-up report. I think we might be trying to find a follow-up report, Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
I think we've gone through 3 people. So.
Well, I heard a yes. I think David
yes,
is there.
David?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, I'm here and can answer your questions.
So, Ms. Johnson, you want to restate your question?
Yes. So I know that the COVID funding or the CARES dollars one of the exceptions is that it can be used to reimburse the city for lost revenue. If we looked at maybe writing off a percentage of the water bills for residents or maybe businesses been closed or something, if we wrote off the balances for water bills, is that something that we can reimburse ourselves with from the CARES dollars, if that was something that we had the political will to do?
I'm sorry, Ms. Johnson, I misunderstood your question. We can't. We can't use the CARES dollars to reimburse ourselves for water.
For lost revenue?
We can't.
Okay. Okay. But lost revenue was one of the areas that we could reimburse ourselves, right?
So we can't use the CARES money for revenue replacement, but let me make sure that I'm not misunderstanding what you're saying. So, David, what can we do?
So you're correct that we can't use the CARES funding to replace the revenue. However, we're looking at a number of different resources to assist our customers with making payments. Some of those would be looking at the private sector. We're also implementing a payment plan arrangement.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? Madam Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, can we, to kind of, I guess, get around that, can we give the money to an organization like Crisis Assistance, and then they're making the decision as to how that money gets deployed, which ends up getting deployed for that kind of a situation? Is that?
So trust me, Mayor Pro Tem, I have tried every way in the world to utilize these funds for water, and between Kelly doing her job and legal doing their job, we're not able to do it.
So he's tried all the runarounds, walk-arounds, and toss-arounds, and he hasn't come up with a way, so.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for trying.
All right. So the next item on our agenda are the committee reports. We've probably done a large part of that, but before we go there, it's item number 12. I sent out a list of the proposed council committee referrals, and we agreed upon these with the committee chairs. And I just wanted to make sure, as we were doing this, in this concept that we had, we were going to be able to come back with a draft community safety plan about September the 14th. And I guess the question I have is that each committee has a section that is really required for us to do that plan, and that means that you would have a meeting in August, or at least by a little bit by the September 14th meeting, for the areas that address public safe communities. And I just wondered if that was where everyone was on the same page for that. So as we go through this and we're talking about the committee work, I'd just like to hear from each chair if looking at those projects that they would do as to get us to having a draft safety plan, including the manager who would be coming to us with the violence interruption program in neighborhoods, as well as the violence interruption program that's hospital-based. And so we were trying to incorporate this. So I know as each committee comes through, if they could just think and let me know if that's still realistic for you considering. Okay, so we start off with budget and effectiveness, Mr. Driggs, and the ones that you had was for the violence part was violence prevention data matrix and public scorecard and the police budget review by service area.
Yes, Mayor. We haven't seen yet a breakdown of the police budget review by services area. My thought is that needs to be a kind of consolidated financial statement for the police department, again, broken down by those major service areas rather than all of the internal documents related to their finances. But we don't have that yet, so the committee hasn't looked at it. The other thing is we would look at it and then I think submit to the rest of the council the information. I don't know that the budget committee is going to be the one that makes decisions about whether those amounts that have been identified in the respective service areas are too much or too little. But I would have to actually refer to staff to know when we can expect to see that breakdown and then discuss it and refer it to committee, to the full council. So the question to staff. Similarly, the data matrix. I can talk in a minute about what we did discuss at our last meeting, but these items have not yet shown up at a meeting and haven't been considered by us yet.
Okay. Do you think you can do them by September?
Well, I don't know what dates we're going to be meeting.
I think that's what I'm trying to get clarity around, because I don't want us to outline something that we're forced ourselves to do. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to force something, but we want to keep on track on this for the, so if it's not possible to do it, we just need to say that up front. You see what I'm saying?
I think if we could have a meeting in August at which the material that the committee needs to consider is presented to us, then I think we could probably get a fair amount of work done. I'd be interested to hear from other committee members. But again, we haven't had that foundation yet where we just get data that we can talk about.
Okay.
So if the staff can give us something to react to and to analyze for a meeting sometime this month.
I think that there was something scheduled for August the 18th.
Right. We've already talked about a couple of agenda items for that meeting. If we can get this information then, again, subject to what the other members of the committee say, I think we could look at it on the 18th. We could plan a follow-up meeting in order to finalize whatever our conclusions were on the 18th, and therefore have available for the remainder of council a digest of the financial information and an analysis of the violence prevention data matrix.
Okay. If you'll just let me know by next week, that would be great.
Right. Again, I need to hear from staff to be able to kind of reach any conclusion about that. Mm-hmm. So are we also doing the committee reports? Or
yes, I think I would highlight anything because we did have them in the document, so you don't have to go through everything, but I think the highlights would really be important.
Right. I just want to mention there were the 3 topics I mentioned in the summary we have. We need to do a little more work on the notion of prioritizing capital investments that are funded by tourism dollars. I think the summary of where we want to go with that is what are the policy options to prioritize tourism fund investments with community-city partnership to achieve the city's priorities. And this has to do with the fact that in the past, council has not really had a really good analytical or policy framework for considering some of the proposals that come to us for the use of hospitality funds. The second item was the internal audit report that we got that highlighted 22 areas for improvement in terms of our capital funding and management of capital projects. I think we need to go a little further on that, particularly given what we were talking about earlier. I would like for our committee to come back with recommendations about how we can address the issues that are brought up there. And the third item that we considered was whether or not there should be a policy around resolutions. And I think it's fair to say that the majority of the committee felt that there really should not be any rules that we try to establish about resolutions, that council should consider those on a case-to-case basis as they're brought forward. And that's kind of what we did.
Okay. Ms. Ajmira has a question or a comment. Ms. Ajmira?
Yes. To Mr. Chairman's point about the CMPD budget review, does that include the referral that was from the safety committee for CMPD audit? Is that what you're referring to, Mr. Driggs?
We had talked about the notion of reviewing all the finances of CMPD with an eye towards considering the notion of, as we reimagine, do we reallocate some of those funds? Do we allocate some of those funds away from CMPD to civilian departments? So I think what this intends is that we get a kind of management version of the finances of CMPD that makes apparent to us how the money is being spent now, from which we can then consider whether we see too big an investment in some areas and not enough in others. What I want to avoid is an attempt by a whole bunch of people to do an audit of all the financial statements of CMPD when we're not qualified to do that and don't have the time.
So I just want to ask Safety Committee Chair, Mr. Eggleston. I know this was a referral by the Safety Committee for the request that we have gotten for the CMPD audit, and that was not a financial audit. Well, financial was part of it, but it was mostly around effectiveness of our public dollars, and I know that there was a scope of the audit that was sent by Safe Coalition. So I just want to hear from Mr. Eggleston as to what was the purpose behind that referral, and was there a specific scope that you had in mind for that referral?
Well, I don't believe it was my motion, so I don't know what the motion maker at the time specifically had in mind, but I think that there will likely be an ongoing conversation, and we talk a little more about it when we get to the community safety report, but an ongoing conversation as we go through each of these meetings every other week and unpacking a different part of CMPD's policies, budgets, tactics, tools, whatever, where we might identify areas that we can reimagine the work that they do, or work that might be better suited to be placed in another department or in another service provider's hands. And with each of those would come an accompanying amount of money that would be saved by CMPD not doing that work and could be reallocated somewhere else. So I think the process sort of inherently has a bit of an audit built into it that we'll be doing in the Community Safety Committee, which you sit on as well, obviously. And you know, what the specific ask was of the Budget Committee would be, I guess, a philosophical question for the motion maker, and I don't recall who that was, but I think we'll be doing it in our committee, you and I and the rest of the committee, as we have these meetings every 2 weeks.
Mayor, could I comment on that?
Please.
If you recall, at one of our meetings, a work plan was kind of proposed in which all of the council committees had some perspective on this safety thing. So this particular referral to finance was part of a general process of trying to take a holistic view of it, engage all of council in the areas of the respective committees. And I just want to comment that the word audit, in the narrow sense, connotes a verification of financial statements, a check to see that the numbers as they are reported are actually the right numbers. So we're using the word audit, if at all, in a broader sense here to describe a review of these financials in order to gain familiarity with them, and in order to use that knowledge to consider the question about whether resources could be allocated more effectively in a different way. And that's why I'm saying I don't intend for this to be anything resembling an audit where we get a sheet of all the internal financial documents for the police department. We need to have a management type of consolidation of those numbers that helps us to participate in the council-wide discussion. But I think each of the committees on council has a charge that is related to this overall safety goal that we're trying to achieve by September 14th.
Okay, thank you. All right. The next report is from the Great Neighborhoods Committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and members of the City Council. I gave a tentative report based on the last meeting of the task force, which was held on July 30th of last month. We're into August. Our goal is to meet around the 1st of September for our first Great Neighborhoods Committee, and those items will be the first items that we take out for consideration to meet the September 14th deadline.
Okay. That's a big question because it relates to if we're going to do nuisance abatement, what do we do for housing displacement? And it's a big issue and a very complex one. So thanks for taking that on as it relates to safety. The next report is from Intergovernmental, and I think we heard that earlier today. Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Bakari, Mr. Winston?
I think just to answer your specific question, Ms. Miles, you wanted us on IG to think about Ms. Watlington's ABC board proposal, intergovernmental work around homelessness, and as well as reintroduction of formerly incarcerated people as it relates to our community safety work. To be completely honest, I don't know if we will be ready on September 14th. I can confer with my co-chair and Mr. Fenton about that. Again, we are trying to bucket all right now our work for the legislative agenda as well as our intergovernmental strategy to deal with this. And so this is something we know that we were aiming for our meeting on September 22nd to have those strategies and those buckets, staff's response to that. But I can touch base with Mr. Fenton to see what kind of strategies we can come up with for September 14th around those three items.
I also think that we had you guys looking at the nuisance abatement process as well as the Criminal Justice Advisory Board, and that board is...
Yes, and that's something else that we talked about. Again, this was something else I talked to Ms. Watlington about at the end of last week. We do think that there's a intergovernmental strategy that needs to be looked at with that, because that is not something that would be germane to the legislative agenda.
Right.
And
but it's intergovernmental, and so that, and I think that Mr. Jones was going to try to reach out to the county manager, because right now they're the lead for it, but we need to step it up in that area. So, okay. Anything else, Mr. Bakari? Anything to add?
No, thanks.
Okay, the next one, I guess, is the committee that's the hardest working committee in the, what do they call it? The hardest working man in show business, the hardest working committee in council. Safe Communities, Mr. Eggleston.
We're the James Brown of council committees.
Yeah, that's right. Everything you do is about safety now.
You didn't think I was going to get that reference.
Yeah, well.
Well, we've talked about it plenty tonight and every meeting we've had for the last couple of months, as we should. We continue to meet every other Tuesday with our community input group meeting on the opposite weeks from the Safe Communities Committee, getting great feedback from them. We have heard from them, as we mentioned in the last meeting. And I think we've heard it from our own committee members as well as the input group members, that we're really trying to bite off a lot very quickly. And so I think we're still trying to strike a balance between getting this work done quickly and getting it done effectively. And so in our last committee meeting, we were not able to get to all the things we had on our agenda because it was so ambitious. So we'll continue to try to strike that balance. If there's specific questions, I'm happy to field them, but I feel like that's the main thing we've been talking about for a while now. Is besides COVID, it's COVID and community safety. So just remind people that our next meeting will be a week from tomorrow, Tuesday, August 18th at 11 a.m. And take questions and move on. I know we've got still other agenda items and maybe even a closed session to get to, and it's almost 11. So.
Okay, nobody's got any questions. All right, our next one is Transportation Planning and Environment. Ms. Mayor Pro Tem? For yours, we had the vision plans for the opportunity corridors and development and design considerations to increase safety and security in our buildings and sites.
Okay. Do you want me to go over that or the?
No, I was just saying that's as a reminder to make sure that you think you could be ready by September. So that was all I was asking. I think that I'm hearing just the reports, and other people have got get back with me at some point.
Okay. So for our committee update, we had a really full agenda in July. I won't go into too much detail. The first item that we talked about was the Silver Line, and Mr. Lewis tonight gave us an update on the Silver Line and kind of went over a lot of what we talked about in the committee meeting, so I won't rehash all of that. And then Alicia Osborne gave us an update on the comprehensive vision plan, and just the stakeholder engagement that's been taking place there, and some of the meetings that are coming up with strategic advisors later this month. And then we will kick off a series of virtual focus groups this month as well, that include drive-in community workshops. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes for the comprehensive vision plan. And then we had a presentation by Allison Craig and Tim Porter on our tree canopy action plan. And as you know, we reviewed the tree canopy plan in 2018 and made a decision to put that into the comprehensive vision plan. But we did have a text amendment that we voted on this year, I guess. And from all of that came the need to really talk about having a tree canopy plan, the 2020 tree canopy plan, that would be guided in coordination with the comprehensive vision plan. So in doing so, they've had, Allison and Tim said that they have organized some stakeholder groups that consisted of neighborhood leaders, advocacy groups, development community representatives, landscape architects, home builders, just a whole array of people. And they did a study, if I can find it in here, of what people really thought the plan should be, because we're not achieving 50% coverage by 2050, which was the original goal. And it's just interesting to note that of that straw poll that was done, thoughts on adjusting Charlotte's current 50% of canopy, the results were 10% said to keep that goal, 65% wanted to revise the current goal, keeping some of the elements of the 50 by 2050 plan, but also include new focus areas, and 25% needed more information. So that was really it. They haven't gotten too much into the plan yet, the tree canopy plan, but knowing that they might have to make some adjustments is probably where they're headed. And then the last item was the update on the Charlotte Moves Task Force, which is the task force led by Mayor Gant. And let me see, the goal was to, the key points from the panelists that spoke. They had panelists that spoke from different cities, such as Austin and Broward County and Nashville, that have had mobility plans. Some have been successful, some have not. And so the panelists spoke on the key takeaways, and their recommendations were to have a very bold vision on your transit plan, having a comprehensive plan that has broad-based benefits that can easily be communicated to people. Make sure you've got good civic engagement, get out to people and talk, which is a little hard right now, and have a data-driven plan. And the goal of the plan is to deliver a transformation network mobility plan to Mayor Lyles by December. So that was it for the meeting, and we're meeting again September 28th.
Okay, thank you. The next, I'm turning pages here. The next committee is Workforce and Business Development. And my understanding is, Mr. Mitchell, that we failed to, in all of our deliberations, failed to take the appropriate action for the remainder of your committee meeting from today as well. So if you could add that to that, we can make that as a part of your motion after you make your committee report. Is that okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, so on Workforce Business Development Committee update, we had a great presentation from Holder Edison R. Jalipa about a workforce/upward mobility program that they are doing now on the convention center as well as the airport. And then later on, we talked about our corridors of opportunity strategy. Staff gave an outstanding presentation how they're working internally. And then we actually voted on Mayor and Council on a new logo. So hopefully at our September 8th strategy session, we can add that to the agenda. And so the entire council can see kind of the new logo, the new strategy for the corridor of opportunity. Mayor, you challenged us that all our takeaways would be for the workforce development. I think those items in green, and we're scheduled to have those at our September 14th, 11:30 a.m. committee meeting. Thanks to Emily and Tracy for already leading the charge and working with Charlotte Works and the Urban League on our workforce development initiatives.
So thank you. I think that what I'm hearing is that we should plan on having something by the end of September as a draft public safety plan instead of early September. And that'll give everybody time over August and September to get there. So let's just say that we'll do that. And I'll make sure that Marie sends out an updated list of all of the committee referrals to the complete council later on this week when you get your packets, or we'll just send it by email. Mr. Mitchell, do you have something? We need to go back to the Thrive program?
Yes.
And yes.
Tracy, I'm going to let you handle for here the recommendation we made to move forward on the Thrive.
Great. If we can pull back up the presentation that we had up earlier. Okay, so I'm going to start with what we talked about earlier, which was the access to capital. There was a recommendation that came out of committee today, which was to open up the grant program to not just companies who had not received PPP, but to companies who had also received PPP. If you remember, I told you there was about $44 million in grants that are applications that had been received. About 1,700 of those were companies that had received PPP, and I think the other remainder, 1,500 or so, were ones that had not. We also are pivoting, as Councilmember Johnson said, we're pivoting to assist companies that have submitted applications, but for some reason that there's an error. So we're going back through them. It could be simple as there was a signature left off, but we are pivoting to do more in that. And then we're also working with some navigators to help engage international small businesses. So we need the recommendation to open that up to all companies that have received PPP that still fall within the same parameters, 1 to 5 employees, 6 to 25, all the same parameters. And then we would open new applications for that tomorrow through the 30th and run for 3 weeks. And then you can see the timeline on the right-hand side of the column to start getting checks out. We would continue to deploy checks out. I'm just going to keep on going to the next slide and get through the Thrive stuff. We can take this on all at once. I would be remiss if I didn't say in the Open for Business, the access to capital, the foundation has been a really great partner in keeping us up to date literally daily with the information that's coming in, making sure that this is equitable, spread throughout our community, and identifying any issues that we may have. So what you see here is the proposed Thrive budget. I mentioned earlier tonight that we had about $2.5 million that rolled over from the Survive $35 million budget. And so we have a $17.5 million budget to work with here. I'm going to go through each one of these initiatives pretty quickly. We can go to the next slide. Workforce partner support. That is very similar to the program that I outlined in in Survive tonight, where we did small business grants for organizations in our community that were supporting small business. It's supporting our ecosystem that supports businesses. This is the same thing, but this is about workforce and training, and doing a grant program that allows organizations, nonprofits, academic to reach out and apply for a grant to increase capacity or help pivot. Some were doing in-person training, now we're pivoted to doing online training to continue to train our workforce that has been displaced with COVID. The initiative to the right-hand side, the Thrive Hiring Grants, we've talked about this many times. I think we use this for Chime Solutions. We called it the Opportunity Hiring Grant. The Thrive Hiring Grant is similar, but it is with the intention of getting companies to hire employees that have been displaced from COVID. We do know that some companies are hiring out there, and we want to give them an incentive to go ahead and hire now and hire local. Next slide. The Open for Business initiative, you heard me say a little bit about earlier as well, where this is really building out a platform that serves as the primary resource for connecting all small business and our workforce. We want to add in a job connector, and we want to continue to build out as our grant opportunities come on, or even other grant opportunities from out our community come on, that this is the place that we can promote that. To date, we have also been building this out as a resource center. And so it's the mentorship series, it's town hall resources, as I mentioned, grant opportunities, but then also connecting small businesses to other small businesses. And so this will be a big one that as we promote the industries, we talked about streeteries tonight. Here's a great place where we can promote encouraging people to get back out and go to different restaurants or get back out into the community in different ways, as well as connect back to some of the small businesses that are out there. Next slide. On the left-hand side, you have the Resilient Re-Up program. If anybody remembers or has heard us talk about the AMP Up program, this is a great model that we have. AMP Up has served to be a capacity building program for our MWSBEs. What the Resilient Re-Up is for small businesses. It's not targeted just at MWSBEs, but for small businesses to try to create resiliency plans. And our goal is to serve 40 to 60 small businesses with 25 people or less. And again, really focusing on resiliency so that they are better at crisis management, risk management, and have the opportunity to function better through times like this. On the right-hand side, you have the Innovate Business Grant. We talked about that a little bit today. There's an existing grant program out there by Honeywell and Center City Partners that's focused on a 2-mile radius, small businesses, a 2-mile radius from uptown. We're proposing to have a very similar program to that, but that it is citywide. And again, really encouraging businesses to get innovative, to pivot in different ways, and even become more resilient through this crisis. Next slide. And it's the one we've talked about with the Targeted Relief Fund. So with that, I think what we were looking for, if we can go back to the slide of budgets, the budget. One other thing I did want to point out. There we go. Thank you. The access to capital implementation cost is another aspect of it. And this is the cost that we've incurred to deploy the access to capital, the $30 million. We broke it down under that $2.76 million because a big chunk of this has been really taking employees from the Y and other places that have been furloughed, putting them back to work, getting them to get out into the community to help inform business owners, help business owners apply for the access to capital. Part of it too was building out the infrastructure for the system to administer the grants, and then the fee for just the straight administration of it. It's important to note that as we go into this next phase of access to capital that I've recommended, that the cost is just over $300,000, but the foundation for an additional 8 weeks of work or 6 weeks of work is not charging any additional fees, so they are taking that on themselves. So again, reiterating what a great partner that they have been. But a big chunk of that implementation cost goes to putting our community to work. And with that, I will stop.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
may I make 2 quick points? Tracy, can you go back one more slide, please? Thank you. So I want to give Councilmember Newton kudos for his leadership. Mayor and Council, you look at like the second bullet on engage the community to outreach strategy. There was a lot of conversation about our international small business community. We're having some barriers. Under Councilmember Newton leadership, we talked to the Foundation of Carolina. We went out and hired some navigators to help us with the international small business community. So I just want to highlight that if you see things out there that we can make this program better, Foundation of Carolina has been a great partner to be flexible. So Councilmember Newton, thank you for that. The other comment I want to make, and I know we didn't have time to put this on the slide, but I just want people to know rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4, how the demographics broke down. And Laura Smith did an excellent job. So rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4, that $8 million, 59% have been African American, 24% have been Caucasian, 9% has been Latino, Hispanic, 5% have been Asian. And then we do have a map, Mayor and Council, that shows where all the small businesses are located. And you should be very proud that they are truly dispersed throughout our whole community, throughout our whole city. So I'd like to make approval for adoption of the recommendation to go next steps for the access to capital.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adoption of the plan as described by Ms. Dodson. Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Eggleston?
So that will take into account the vote that was taken earlier.
Well, yes, that vote is already taken, so yes.
Yeah, so, thank you.
Okay.
And I would just add, Madam Mayor, I think we have to really call attention to the incredible work our staff has done over the last several weeks, thinking about Thrive, secondary phase to all of this, while we were also crafting the Survive program. Staff, hats off to you. For what has been accomplished, it has been on your shoulders. So thank you so much.
All right. Well, we'll start with the motion. So Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Ms. Ajmira?
Absolutely.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes, yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston? Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington?
Yes.
So is there anyone that opposes this motion? With no one opposed, the motion passes unanimously. We're now on item 13, appropriate additional funds for the COVID release. This is the $3 million from the FEMA money that we've spent portion of, and the money from the Emergency Solutions Grant. The task force recommendation would implement the task force recommendation and authorizing the manager to execute any contracts necessary to implement the programs.
Motion to adopt and authorize.
Mr. Eggleston, anyone else? A second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Newton? Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Is there anyone that objects to this motion? Then it passes unanimously. Item 14, Centene Corporation Business Investment Grant, to approve the city share of the business investment grant to Centene Corporation for not to exceed amount of $31,588,352 over 12 years.
Move for
Motion
approval.
approved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, we'll start with Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Newton.
Yes.
Mr. Bakari.
Yes.
Mr. Driggs.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Ms. Ajmira. Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
All right, so is there anyone that objects to this motion? Hearing no objection, the motion passes unanimously. Item 15 is the sale of city-owned property on Starwood Avenue to adopt a resolution approving the sale for $20,000 and authorizing the manager to negotiate and execute documents necessary to complete the sale of the property. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Ms. Esmira.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Winston.
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston.
Yes.
Mr. Driggs.
Yes.
Is there anyone that objects to the motion? Hearing no objection, it passes unanimously. Item 16, approve developer agreement with Little SU United States Limited, whatever partnership, and adopt a budget ordinance appropriating $10,000 in private developer funds for traffic signal installations and improvements. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Yes. All right. Mr. Driggs.
Yes.
Mr. Bakari.
Yes.
Mr. Newton. Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. Watlington.
Yes.
Mr. Graham.
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston.
Yes.
All right. Is there anyone that objects to the motion? If not, then the motion is approved unanimously. Item 17, accept Federal Transit Administration Section 5303 Metropolitan and Statewide Planning Funds in the amount of $500,000 as identified in CARPO's Organization Unified Planning Work Program and adopt a budget ordinance appropriating same amount. Do I have a motion?
Move to accept and adopt.
Second.
All right. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
I'm sorry, is there any discussion? All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Ms. Esmira.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Winston. Mr. Eggleston.
Yes.
Mr. Graham.
Yes.
Ms. Watlington. Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Is there anyone that opposes the motion? Hearing no one in opposition, it passes unanimously. Item 18, approve the September 2020 City Council augmented virtual regular meeting schedule. Authorize the city clerk or designee to adjust the September 2020 City Council augmented virtual meeting schedule in accordance with the statutes of North Carolina's phased reopening. Status
Motion
of North
approved.
Carolina. Okay. And do I have a second? Thank you.
Second.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yep.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Is there anyone in opposition to this item? If not, it's unanimous. Item 19, adopt an annexation ordinance with an effective date of August the 10th to extend the corporate limits to include Cameron Commons area property and sign them to District 4. You're getting bigger, Ms. Johnson. You're going to have more land to cover, more territory. Do I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Watlington,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
Ms. Esmira,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Is anyone in opposition to this motion? Hearing no one in opposition, unanimous decision. Item 20, decision on Carson Glen area voluntary annexation. Adopt an annexation ordinance with the effective date of August the 10th to extend the corporate limits to include Carson Glen area properties and assign them to District 2. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, this is in District 2. So, Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Watlington,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Newton,
Yes.
Mr. Bakari, Mr. Driggs.
Yes.
Is anyone in opposition to this item? Hearing no one in opposition, it passes unanimously. Agenda item 21, adopt an annexation ordinance with an effective date of August the 10th to extend the corporate limits to include McGee Place properties and assign them to adjacent City Council District 2. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Newton? Mr. Bakari?
Yep.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
All right. Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Hearing no opposition, that motion passes unanimously. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Council topics.
I can't believe you said it with a straight face, either Larkin. That was really good. That was really good.
Closed session.
All right. We're not good. No. No, we're not having a closed session. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
No close. Okay.
So moved.
All right, second. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We adjourn. Thank you, everyone very much. Bye.